Hey y'all, happy Saturday. As I am doing this live, it is what, Saturday around noon on the West Coast. Um, and I wanted to talk about the transit that we're having today, this Pluto Cazimi, Pluto conjunct the sun, happening between like the last degrees of Capricorn and the first degrees of Aquarius. I hesitated a moment ago because I was kind of laughing at myself. Here's some transparency for y'all. So, yes, I'm trying to build up my YouTube channel, but I'm also a deeply anti capitalist person. And so, even though I've consumed the content, watched the YouTube videos, read the articles, consulted with a number of different people about what should be done to manage one's YouTube channel or any social media, um, I'm deeply resistant to it because it seems so rooted in capitalism. In order to get the views, you ought to be posting this much, and you've got to mix up your content in between these different types. Do a long form, do a short form, do a live, and all of that shit feels exhausting. And I'm laughing at myself in this moment because I said, yeah, a lot of people are talking about this particular transit, and I don't need to be another voice in the fray. I think a lot of times when there are significant astrology transits, and aren't they all significant? All the astrology girlies jump on the bandwagon, and everybody got to be talking about the same shit in the same damn way. And I think sometimes misinformation can get regurgitated, and that leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And so I haven't been wanting to be a part of that. But also, a bitch is a know it all. And so I do have things to share. Um, and so, yeah, I decided to hop on live because I felt like it, not because I felt obligated to as an astrologer, not to because I feel obligated to as a person that's trying to build up my YouTube account, if that makes any sense. Anyway, that was a long ass preface. But yeah, so what happened, what is happening in the sky with Pluto is interesting to me and many other astrologers, or astrology enthusiasts. So, Pluto, it's like we were taught that in elementary school. It's the furthest planet away. And, the further a planet gets away from Earth, astrologers believe that like it has less of a like day-to-day impact on us. Um and instead of affecting us like individually, it's more of like a generational thing. And so Pluto transiting and changing signs is a big deal because it takes so long for Pluto to move anywhere. But it's not that big a deal as it pertains to your everyday life. Like your day or your life today is not going to be radically different tomorrow because of this transit. So I just want to say that it's a big deal to us, people that watch the sky, because this thing that takes like 20 years to move is finally moving. But it's not an emergency. It's not something that you need to like shift your day around. So I just want to give that preface too. So yeah, the deal with Pluto is outer planet, slow ass orbit, irregular ass orbit. Um, Contrast and compare. You know how like the moon changes signs like every 2 days? Pluto takes like 12, 20 years. Its transit through the last sign that it was in, or is currently in, I guess, Aquarius, started in 2008, and it's going to end and it's ending now in 2024. Um, and then yeah, it's moving from Capricorn to Aquarius, and then it'll be in Aquarius for like 20 something years. And so, yeah, that is kind of interesting in that way. It feels like a big deal, you know, because this thing that doesn't move is moving. Another thing that's interesting about today, tomorrow, is that Pluto and the sun are combining energies in that the sun is moving from the last degrees of Capricorn into the early degrees of Aquarius, just like Pluto is. For just this brief ass moment in time, they are combining their energies in a really interesting way called a Cazimi, Cazimi, which basically just means that the sun is acting like a flashlight, a bright ass flashlight, and it is shining its light on all of the Pluto issues. Which is interesting because Pluto is um, kind of dark. Pluto is like the equivalent of Hades. So, like, this is like the underworld. And so, a lot of times when we think about Plutonian type issues or Plutonian type vibes, we think about like the depths, the deep darkness, excavating the depths of things, you know? And so, what an amazing opportunity to shine light on the depths that we have experienced for the last like 16 years while Pluto was sitting in Capricorn, and the new depths that we're about to get into as Pluto transits into Aquarius. And so, if I were to say this affects your day to day life at all, I would say that today, this weekend, the next couple of days may be a useful opportunity to shine a light on the ways in which you have been digging in the depths and deeply transforming yourself in the Capricorn area of your chart, and to think about what you would like to transform over the next 20 years in the Aquarius part of your chart, if that makes sense. Um, I wonder if I should go through the signs. Let me check the chat actually. Did anybody say anything? Nope. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. I guess it depends on how long I want to stay on. But yeah, that's just me explaining the situation and why all the astrology girlies are obsessed. Yo, they have been talking about this transit for months. And it's interesting. It's also interesting to me because really, this isn't all of it. Like, this isn't. Pluto is changing signs and will hop into Aquarius for like a hot second until November, but it's going to go back into Capricorn in November. It's not permanently in Aquarius for until, gosh, I can't remember, but I want to say it's like early 2025. I might have that wrong. I probably should have looked that up before I started talking, but yeah, this is as close to permanent as we've experienced, because what has been happening for like the last year or so is that it'll hop back here for like a couple of months and then it'll go into Aquarius, you know. So we've been watching it like waffle, and it's just getting closer to the end, if that makes any sense. And yeah, in terms of how it might affect folks, let me see here. I'm looking at a rising chart, and that is putting this transit in the ninth and 10th houses. So yeah, for Taurus risings, a thing to reflect on might be, how have I changed, grown, evolved, transformed in terms of my belief systems, in terms of my approach to maybe higher education and academia, if that is your thing, or in terms of my philosophies and my philosophies that I hold very, very dear to my heart. And I'm not talking about like necessarily religiosity, though that could be a part of it, but I guess it's more to like that belief system part. Like, how have you changed your deepest mental landscapes, and what you believe about how the world works? And yeah, this transit started in 2008. So I think it was like actually, I want to say the date was January 28th of 2008. Don't quote me on that. I love to throw out exact dates and not know what the fuck I'm talking about. But anyway, so yeah. How have you changed Taurus rising in that particular area of your chart? And then in terms of what you can look forward to is deep transformation in the 10th house area of your chart. Your public reputation, maybe your career, what would you like if you could imagine anything shifting in that area of life? What would you like it to look like? And could you think of any strategies around it? You don't necessarily have to adhere to any of this, um, and that might change. It will probably change over the next 20 years, but it's something to maybe think about and maybe aspire to. So yeah, I wish that I could just advance this chart so that I could know. I don't want to say the wrong things, but I'm thinking about Gemini rising and how that might. Let me see if I can change. Hold on. Ooh, I can. Okay, I'm going to keep doing this. So, Gemini rising, then this transit would have happened in your 8th and ninth house. So, 8th house, that deals with like some of the taboo things that we don't like to talk about, like death, sex, taxes, shared resources, the money that we share with other people, particularly like our spouses. How has that changed for you since 2008? And it's just, a useful exercise to just note what has changed, what was your part in changing it? Where's your onus, your locus of control, I think is what they be saying in therapy. Yeah, so how has that shifted for you since 2008? And then in terms of what you're going into, again, changing that mental landscape. And as it relates to the 8th and ninth house, I might even ask Gemini risings more pointedly, what have you lost? How has that changed you? How might it affect the ways that you think about the world? Um, yeah, I hope that makes sense, Gemini rising. Cancer risings, this would have happened in your 7th and 8th house. So, deep transformation in the area of relationships. Yes, romantic relationships, but any one on one connection, deep one on one connection that you have with somebody, your best friend, your work spouse, business partnerships to a lesser extent, especially if they're like long term business partnerships, not just somebody that you partner with like on a project. But yeah, how has that changed for you since 2008? Might be useful to like jot down some notes, remember the ways that you navigated this change and transformation so that you could take this into when we move into the Pluto and Aquarius part of things in the next 20 years. And yeah, then my question would be, how do you want your life to change as it relates to some of the deeper, darker shadow work aspects of your life, and sort of even your mental landscape, your mental health? What would you like that to look like over the next 20 years? Dear Cancer risings, I'm gonna move on to Leo. Let's see where that's happening. Okay, so Leo risings, and that would have happened in your 6th house. You would have had Pluto and Capricorn transit in your 6th house. And so since 2008, what has your health looked like? Has that transformed in any kind of way? And or what has your daily routine or like your jobs, what have they looked like? How have they transformed over the years, since 2008? Um, in what ways has it served you? Has this transformation felt good? Have you been able to contribute in any ways to the transformation? How did you accomplish that? Um, how did you navigate that? What sort of strategies and tools do you have in your sort of tool chest that you can bring to a seventh house Pluto and Aquarius transit? And then, yeah, over the next 20 years, what would you like to see your one on one relationships look like? How would you want people to show up for you? How do you want to show up for people? How do you do your romantic relationships? Has it been working for you? Is there something that you want to deeply transform around that? Um, yeah. With a Leo rising, I'm wondering about compulsory heterosexuality. I think because Leo rising is so visible, sometimes Leo rising can be swept up in normativity. And so, yeah, I wonder, yes, about queerness, but also, are you doing poly? Are you doing relationships in a way that is different, or will you be in the next 20 years, rather? Will you be doing relationships in a way that is different from the norm? And how can you prepare for that? And what would you desire if you were not tied to compulsory heterosexuality, monogamy, all of the normative ways in which people do relationships? What would you choose? And how can you transform your life to align with what you would choose? That is a thing you could think about and might have some clarity on in these, next couple of days with this Pluto Cazimi, or Pluto conjunct the sun. Let me plug in my charger. Boop, boop. Put this down. Put this there. All right. So that's for my Leo rising homies. And let's keep going. Reminder to myself that we started with Taurus, because I will forget. For my Virgo rising homies, that means this transit has taken place over your fifth house, and it is moving into your sixth house. And so, how have you changed your life in terms of your pleasure praxis? How have you changed your life in terms of the ways that you creatively express yourself over the last 16 years, since 2008? Um, I'm trying to think. I think I know somebody that's a Virgo rising. Yeah, initials CC. I'm going to shout you out particularly as I talk about this. But yeah, how have you changed your creative self expression, your arts practice, your pleasure praxis, the ways in which you have prioritized that kind of joy? Just the kind of private joy that is just centered on what brings you as an individual joy, not what you had to do for everybody else or what you had to do for a business, but what have you found to that brings you as an individual joy in your life, Virgo rising? And how has that shifted since 2008? What have you changed? How were you able to change that? And what sort of strategies could you then recall to bring into the next transit of Pluto transiting your sixth house of daily routines, health to a certain extent, work, jobs, that kind of thing? And I'm particularly thinking about the person that I know that has initials CC, that is a Virgo rising. And I'm wondering what it would look like if you could remember the things you learned about pleasure, joy, and the importance of pleasure and joy, and how could you integrate that into your daily routines, the ways that you do your work, and how that might even shift your physical health to remember that pleasure and joy are important and valuable, just as important and valuable as making sure that things are perfect and doing the best job at things. Um, yeah. Oh, oh. my heart goes out to you so much. So yeah, that's Virgo rising. Let me look at Libra. Libra rising. This transit is happening between, oh, your fourth and then your fifth houses. So Libra rising. How has your how has your home life changed since 2008? Libra rising, how has your family changed since 2008? Both the family that you come from and how you do the family that you are creating. And yes, we can talk about like blood family, but also like the family that you choose. What kind of transformations have taken place in terms of that? Or yes, how you do the idea of home, but even your physical living circumstance. How has that transformed since 2008? And not necessarily just that you've moved, but like the way that you want to live. An example that I could think of is city mouse becoming a country mouse kind of thing, and how like one's values around home might change over time. Like, oh, home to me is being in the heart of the city and being able to access all of the conveniences of modern life, and then maybe shifting to a slower pace of life. You know, I live in the country and I make my own butter kind of thing. That's just an example that comes to mind for no reason. I don't know anybody that's actually done that. But yeah, just how has your concept and self concept of like home and how you do home and family changed over the last 16 years since 2008? And then, are there any lessons that we can apply to the next 20 years around creativity, around expressing one's self through art, through not just art, but just how do you express yourself in non-verbal, non-writing sorts of ways? And what will it mean to step into joy over the next 20 years? What would you like that to look like? If you were to think about centering your joy, your creativity, and expressing yourself in a joyful manner, what would you like to see? And I'm just offering these questions up as a potential like journaling exercise, or maybe just something to talk out loud. Because a lot of times when we have an idea of what we'd like to achieve, we can go in a particular direction rather than just sort of letting things fall and seeing what happens, if that makes any sense. So yeah, that is my message to Libra risings. And let's check out young Scorpio. So yeah, Scorpio risings, this would be happening between your third and fourth houses. And so Scorpio risings, what has changed for you in the last 16 years since 2008 in terms of how you communicate with the world and connect to people via your communication, or your relationship with your siblings, cousins, close family that you have? Um, yeah, how has that changed over the last 16 years? I'm thinking particularly of a good friend that I know. Oh, wait, no, they're not a Scorpio rising. Never mind. I'm not going to tell that story. But yeah, Scorpio risings. What has changed in terms of like your communication strategies, your writing, um, a little bit about your belief systems? Trying to think of other third house kinds of things. Your attitude towards travel. Yeah, how has that changed in the last, 16 years for you? And then again, same question, like, are there any strategies, any things, any moments of triumph that you might be able to apply to the next 20-year transit over your fourth house? Yeah, fourth house of home, family, ancestry. Are there any things that you would like to change about how you are in relationship to your family of origin, or any things that you would like to change about the ways in which you are doing chosen family or your own family? Um, any changes that you would like to make in terms of connecting to your ancestors, and understanding where you come from, like your lineage, but also like your geographical region. Like, I am a proud Southerner, and so wanting to change like my relationship to the South might be a thing. Um, yeah, those are some things that come to mind. I will also note here that Scorpio, or Pluto, is one of the ruling planets of Scorpio. And so while other people, I mean, it is, of course, depending on your attitude, but while other people might find this a more challenging transit because they have to dig up and unearth so many deep, dark feelings and do shadow work, this is a place that might feel more comfortable to you, more familiar, being a person who is, rooted in looking at looking under the rocks and to the deep. And so, yeah, I invite you to understand yourself as a person invested in deep transformation, and understand that you already have those tools in your tool chest. And then, yeah, how would you like to apply the tools that you already innately have, towards how you do family, and how you understand how you build home. Um, yeah, those are some thoughts that come to mind. I am a Sagittarius rising, and I've been looking forward to this transit for years now, actually. Not gonna lie, because Pluto and Capricorn has been happening on my second house of money, earned, my material resources, and it has been ups and downs. It has been deeply transformative for the better, and also, God damn, people do not transform just because it's the right thing to do. We only transform via experiencing trauma, it seems like. And I don't want to learn that way anymore. I want to learn in a way of ease and a timeline of ease. Anyway, yeah, so for Sagittarius risings, since 2008, how has your money changed? How has the way that you earned money changed? Um, what lessons have you learned, in terms of how your relationship to material resources and how they make you feel about yourself? How has that changed? Um, what would you say are some main strategies that you were able to employ to bring about that change in terms of your money and your material resources, how you earn money and how much money you earn? Um, and yeah, recalling how those changes came about. What strategies do you have in your tool chest now that you can then apply to the area of life devoted to communications, dealing with your siblings and your cousins, um, being able to connect to people, and how the ways in which you use communication might improve not only your connection to individuals, but your connection to the world at large. Yeah, I have a lot to say about this because it's the transit. It is the transit that is most familiar to me, I guess I'll say. Um, yeah. I'll give the example. I'll pause for a second and give the example about, like, my money picture has definitely changed a lot since 2008. Um, I moved from thinking that I could actually survive capitalism to being deeply, deeply anti-capitalist, and understanding that my material resources, the way that I earn money, are more wrapped up in being part of a community than they are being a rugged individual. I'll say that. And what I'm looking forward, and some strategies that helped me do that were like deep research, being in community with people, doing lots of connecting to anti-capitalist thinkers. And then, yeah, what I'm looking forward to as we're thinking about the next 20 years and communication is the fact that Aquarius is so much rooted in improving society as a whole. And so I'm very much thinking about how I might share my story of surviving capitalism as an anti-capitalist, and the community that I might be able to connect to by sharing my story. So that's one way that this transit could look for Sagittarius risings. You know, your mileage may vary. What's next? Boop. Oh, Capricorn risings. Oh man. So I have a couple of homies that are Capricorn risings, and I love them. I love them. I love that late bloomer, hardworking, dedicated type energy. But yeah, Capricorn risings, this is happening, of course, like in your first house and your second house. So fundamentally, how have you changed since 2008? I'm thinking of one particular Capricorn rising homie that was like caught up in compulsory heterosexuality, and doing all of that stuff. Relationship changed and became over like the last, divested from that relationship entirely, now doing like solo polyamory, and living their best queer and trans life. And I'm just like, damn, that is an example of how you change yourself fundamentally. So yeah, Capricorns, how has yourself, who you fundamentally identify as, how has that changed since 2008? What did you do to make those changes? What strategies were you able to employ? And then can we take these strategies and shift them into your work, how you make money, how you earn money, and how your relationship to material resources that support you. It's a big deal transit for Capricorn rising folks. Um, and I'm really, really excited to see how y'all navigate this, because I think of Capricorns as so, mm, it's hard working, but it's just the idea of like chipping away at a thing, a little bit of work every day so that we can build a huge monument, you know? Um, and so I'm excited to see how this unfolds for you in terms of what you achieve, but also like the timing of it all. If anybody is like most suited to this transit, I would say it's probably Capricorn risings, because you understand how things unfold slowly and transform slowly over time. So, yeah, I'm wishing you the best. Capricorns, we just did that, and now we're gonna do Aquarius. Okay, Aquarius risings. So this is taking place over your 12th and then into your first houses. Let me say that I'm curious. I'm curious about how this transit has affected you, because this has been happening in your 12th house. Your 12th house, and we talked about this in my Perfection House years videos. Check those out if you haven't. But yeah, the 12th house is, it's a scary place. You know, 4th, 8th, and 12th houses can be scary places. I think the 12th house probably more so, because it literally is the house of like the unknown, the unseen, the ways in which we betray ourselves. And I'm wondering about how that has transformed for you over the last 16 years. What have you lost? What have you lost? And how did you cope with it? Um, what are the ways, when you lost something, What are the ways that you were able to employ to help you cope with that loss and move and shift your life in a better or just different direction? Aquarius risings, that would then mean that this Pluto transit is going into your first house. And what would it mean to change yourself, who you fundamentally are, your identity, your appearance, even? What would it look like to change yourself over the next 20 years? Um, this isn't like New Year's resolutions. I would like to lose 5 pounds, but more like fundamental things about your identity that you might like to shift. And it is particularly useful, I think, for Aquarius risings to maybe do some journaling this weekend, the next couple of days, because of the Pluto Cazimi and that sun shining a light on these depths, to understand what things about your identity might need to be excavated, to dig into, to deeply explore, maybe even like shadow work type vibes, that might inform the next 20 years. You know, you don't have to figure it out today, this weekend, this week, this month. But again, it's the idea of having something to sort of point to rather than just letting things come at you as they are going to. You know what I mean? Um, it's just something to think about. I'm really excited about this for you, Aquarius rising. And then Pisces risings. This would be happening in your 11th and 12th house. So, Pisces risings, how have your friend groups changed since 2008? For the better or worse? What have you learned about being a part of a community? What have you learned about your place in society? What have you learned about creating joy, happiness, fulfillment with other people and being in groups? And I wonder what you have learned too, about boundaries as you are a person being in community with others. And then what have you learned? How were you able to learn those things? What strategies did you employ? And then can we bring those strategies to the 12th house area of our life? What would it look like to transform your spiritual, maybe religious beliefs? How might your spirituality change? Are there things that you have been looking to explore in the spiritual or at least in the unseen realm? And how might you go about making those shifts? What strategies could you employ from the ways that you were doing community and your place in community that you might bring to a change and transformation over the next 20 years in your spirituality? Yeah, I think that's everything I have to say. Pisces rising. And then I think Aries rising, yeah, because we started with Taurus. Aries rising is the last one. So, Aries rising, homies, this is happening over your 10th and 11th house. So, since 2008, how has your career changed? But even deeper than that, how has your public reputation changed? Did people have one particular conception of you that has maybe changed in some dramatic way over the last 16 years? I'm going to try and think of an example. Um, oh, because it's in Capricorn, let's talk about the function of being responsible. So, Aries rising, what has changed? An example could be becoming a more responsible person, being perceived by the people that know you, particularly like in your workplace or just in the public, not people that know you intimately, like that visit your house. But yeah, in terms of becoming a more responsible human, how were you able to at least give off that impression, or maybe you actually do feel eventually changed inside your heart and become more responsible for whatever it is, not just, work and money related stuff, but whatever you have decided is important to your life and to like aspire to. How has that changed since 2008? How were you able to change it? And what strategies might you employ in terms of how you relate to your community, how you find your place in society, um, the sort of joy that we get from being in community with others. How might you like that to shift over the next 20 years? And are there any strategies that you have used from the last 16 years that you could maybe use as you're thinking about transforming your relationship to groups, your place in society? Yeah, friend groups, but also I'm thinking about the kinds of affiliations that one has because of like their job and their public reputation. So like yes, professional organizations, but also like being known as a responsible person. Like how might that help you as an organizer or an activist? So yeah, those kinds of things are what I'm thinking about for like a 10th, 11th house Pluto transit. So yeah, that's all of the signs. I think that that was everything that I wanted to cover. So yeah, in this video, we talked about Pluto's transit, Pluto's Cazimi this weekend, why the astrology girlies are thinking that this is so valuable, important, and hype. And then we talked about each of the 12 signs and where this transit is landing in terms of the houses that is transiting, and how you might strategize your life around those things. I hope that this has been helpful. I'm done talking. I've talked too much. All right, y'all. I love y'all. I hope that you have a good weekend. And take good care. We got this. Thanks for making time for queer astrology. All right. And